All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here at Next Level Growth. It's a monthly webinar series for entrepreneurs and small businesses powered by the Valley Economic Alliance. The Valley Economic Alliance is a nonprofit organization that's focused on economic, workforce, and business development across the San Fernando Valley. This virtual forum, it'll provide you with an opportunity to learn a lot about different business development topics from experts in the field that we've curated. So today we're going to dive into the types of commercial financing options that are out there and how you can best position yourself and your company to get funding if and when you need it to get to the next level. Please also put in the chat whether you're actively looking for small business financing, for working capital, for operational expenses, for debt refinancing, equipment financing, commercial real estate, or other business development needs. And let us know, who you are so we can touch base with you later. I'd like to let everyone know a little bit about the Valley Economic Alliance Pro Bono Business Assistance Program as well. We offer business coaching and mentoring at no cost. Thanks to our sponsors. We work with businesses that need financing to get them the key documents that lenders need to process loan applications. So that means that if you are asked for a profit and loss or a balance sheet or cash flow projections or executive business plans or personal financial statements or any other items, we can assist you at no cost. So if you want to learn more about that or enroll in that program, go to thevalley.net/assistance. So I'd like to thank first our sponsors and donors, the U.S. Small Business Administration, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and the San Fernando Valley Business Journal for the financial and strategic support that they all offer us. So let's kick things off. It's my pleasure to introduce Kathy McIntyre. She's going to introduce our keynote speaker for today's session. Kathy's a senior client advisor for CMTC. It's the go-to organization that supports manufacturers in California. Since joining CMTC over 10 years ago, Kathy has supported over 500 local businesses by sharing knowledge that spans over a 40-plus year career. Her expertise entails in-house and contract manufacturing, supply chain management, ERP system selection, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, and cybersecurity assessments, just to name a few of her value-added services that she offers. Kathy has worked in a range of manufacturing industries, including biomed, aerospace, defense, semiconductors, electronics, food processing, apparel, and consumer goods. Kathy is also an executive board member of the Valley Economic Alliance and a coach in our business assistance program. So without further ado, Kathy, I'll let you take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Brett. Good morning, everybody. So glad that you joined us. I just love these events that the Valley Economic Alliance has put together for all of our businesses. And I'm so happy to introduce you to Valerie Rivas. Did I say that right, Valerie? Rivas?
You did. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Valerie's here to help us. And what I love about Valerie's background is that she's born here in Los Angeles. She educated herself here in Cal Poly Pomona. She has a degree in business management. She also has a certification in human resources, but she's a young person spending a lot of time giving back already. She's a small business advisor who specializes in women-owned, multiculturally owned, and emerging businesses, which, believe me, is a hard arena to capture and to assist. So I'm so excited to have her here today. She can provide financial literacy and resources to all of our communities. She has over 19 years of experience in the finance industry, and she has also volunteered on several different boards, which include the Executive Board for Employee Benefit Planning Association, the EBPA, the Executive Board for One Inland Empire, Advisory Board for the Multicultural Business Alliance, and the board for members for better money habits. Now, the other thing is, of course, she is also helping us here at the Alliance. So Valerie, I'd like to just pass it over to you because I am so happy that you're here to help these small businesses. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Kathy, for that amazing introduction. And then also Valley Economic Alliance for having me here today and being able to present. And today I'm actually very, very excited to be here. I, do come from an immigrant family. So my first language was Spanish. And I just saw my parents struggle with their business, just trying to do what they could do, how they could do it with really no guidance. They didn't really know about the resources or anything that was available, right? And so today, I applaud everybody that's here today, because not only you're investing on yourself, but also to grow your business, to better your business, and getting that guidance that you need. A little bit about what happened to me. I was about 18 or 19 years old. My brothers were heavily involved in flipping homes and real estate. So naturally, I went into the business, which is why now I'm in commercial, right? And I remember not having the guidance. So I remember just, oh, you know what? I think right now would be a good time to open a small escrow company. That way we can all be a team. My brothers had the real estate side. My other brother, my middle brother, had the loan officer side. And then I was like, it only makes sense for me to open an escrow company, right? Didn't do research on that, didn't do research on the market, anything like that. And that business failed, right? And another one that happened to me is my father, he had an HVAC company. And what that is, if you're not familiar with the business, is they service, install, and water heaters, and they also do air conditioning, right? They fix air conditioners, install them for commercial buildings, residential, and then also they do, oh my goodness, where am I like it at? They also do heaters, right? So they fix them all. And when my father offered that to me, the business, because he was ready to retire, it was $1 million revenue company, right? And he offered it to me, and I just looked at him and I said, you know what? I don't think that I can own this business. First of all, I'm thinking I'm a woman, right? And nowadays, I see women owning logistic companies, trucking companies, right? Construction companies. But I just did not have that entrepreneur mentality like all you do here. So you're already ahead of the game. And I turned it down because, first of all, I didn't know the resources that were available out there. I didn't know how to access capital. I knew that I needed more money for me to take off that business and make it grow, but I just didn't have the guidance that I'm aware of everything that's the resources that are available here. And that's what makes my job very rewarding for me, because I get to deliver this information and the resources that are available out there for you, so that you don't have to be Valerie and miss out on an opportunity, right? So maybe if I would have taken that opportunity, maybe I would have been in a better financial state today, right? But the reason that I'm telling you this story today and right now is because I need everybody to think about, if there's an opportunity that arises, don't give up on it just because a bank says no. There's always ways that you are able to get some sort of financing. Now, why today is so important, right? Today is really important because every year, Bank of America will do a small business report. And when we do the small business report, we survey over 1,000 small business owners throughout the country. And we get insight of how they're feeling about the business, how they're feeling about the market, what are their struggles, what are they looking for. So we try to get an understanding of what they are needing. And in 2023, we found that 80% of the small business owners are looking for some sort of access to capital. And a lot of them say that they're going to borrow it from a family member, right? Which that could be a little bit complicated come the time that maybe you can't pay that back, right? So today, it's very important for us to understand what is out there and alternative ways of financing, so that you don't have to miss out those opportunities. If there's an opportunity that comes of maybe there is a franchise that's available at a good price, right? And you don't want to miss out an opportunity of you turning it down just because you weren't able to gain the capital that you need to be able to move forward with that opportunity. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with this workshop. I'm going to make this bigger so that everybody can see it. Brett, can you confirm that you can see my screen okay?
Yeah, it looks
Yes,
good.
I can see it.
Looks good.
Perfect. I just want to make sure because sometimes it does some funny things on here. So, but first so today, right, you're here because you probably have a business or you maybe want to start a business, right? And so whatever stage that you're at right now, there's always going to be a time that you're probably going to need to access capital, right? And so you will need to know how much you need to borrow, what type of programs are out there, what kind of resources are out there. And I did a workshop maybe about 2-3 months ago for a large nonprofit. It's called National Association of Women Business Owners, which is novel for Los Angeles. And I actually had somebody that attended, and they said, you know what, Valerie, I don't want any debt. And that could just be you, right? Or it could be a different scenario of maybe you have some credit issues that maybe are stopping you from getting the capital that you need, or with a certain lender. So it's very important for you to know what options are out there. Now, going back to the woman entrepreneur that brought this up that didn't want any debt, she said, Valerie, I have a goal of, I want just grants, and I have a goal of $2 million. She was already at $750,000. So that just kind of gives you an idea that when we think about accessing capital, we think about business loans, right? I mean, when I used to think about accessing capital, that's all I really had in my mind before I was in the business, because that's all really that is out there that we know about, right? So most banks have financing options for small businesses, right? But it all really just depends on what stage you are in the development of your company. So they make sense to take a look at other alternative options other than traditional lenders. And when I mean traditional lenders, we all kind of look at lending the same. And these are the leading banks, which would be Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. Those are just some of examples. We all kind of just look at lending all the same. So today you're going to find out what it is that we look for when you are trying to gain financing from these financial institutions. But not only that, but we're also going to go over alternative ways of financing as well. So right now, 6 C's of credit. So this is very, very important for you to understand, especially at an early age of your business. Because eventually, at one point, you're going to want to go to one of the traditional lenders. And why? Because they probably have the best promotions, the best terms, the best rates out there. So this will help you here prepare for you to get ready for the banks. Now, not to say that everything here is set in stone, but for the most part, because there are exceptions to rules, there are certain programs that come out. There are programs like the Small Business Administration, which is also known as SBA, where they give you a little bit more leniency when it comes to your capacity, the credit, how much liquidity you're required to have in the bank, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, the first C of credit would be capacity. Now, typically, you must generate $1.25 of excess cash flow for every dollar that you put into the business, okay? And this is after, this is of debt service. Now, when we talk about debt service, what we're talking about is the debt that you are acquiring. So $1.25 in excess cash flow for every dollar that you put into the business of your total debt. So we want to see that formula at the end of the total debt that you're acquiring, which is really important to know the amount that you're going to borrow. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that would be the first C. The second C is capital, right? Is how much and what type has ownership invested in the business. Also, does the ownership retain an adequate portion of the capital within the business? So we want to see that you're still maintaining money in the bank. So we call that liquidity also, is also known as liquidity. So the money that you sustain in the bank from the revenue that you generate. So typically for lenders, right? So when we're talking about the major banks, the traditional lenders, we typically look, and there's of course exception to the rules because there could always be mitigating factors. We typically look for 5% of your total revenue. So you figure 250,000, you times that times 5%, and that'll give you more or less of the capital to give you a health, for us to see you as a healthy, you have a healthy cash flow in the business account. Number 3 is collateral, which is really important. And I always stress that it's so important to have a good communication with your accountant and you're also your small business banker or your business banker so that you are aware of how the funds are going to be used. And why is that, right? Collateral will also, the bigger the collateral, the better the interest rate and terms that you can get. For example, right, through SBA, you can get up to 25 years to pay off a piece of real estate. Now, when it comes to equipment, typically the max that they will go, depending on the life of use of the equipment, could be 10 years. So that kind of gives you an idea, right? A piece of commercial real estate versus an equipment is 10 years. If you're doing working capital, right, there's really, I mean, there is collateral that we consider, which we call all business assets. But if you think about it, it's kind of like we're lending really to air because the working capital, there's really nothing that could be taken away should you're not have the capacity to pay the lender back. So on here it says banks prefer to secure debt with business assets, including account receivables, equipment, commercial real estate, or inventory, all of which may be used as loan collateral. So I always ask my client, what are you going to be using the funds for? Not only does the bank want to know, right? But at the same time, it'll also, as a banker, help us structure what type of loans we're getting for you. So I'll give you a quick example. I had a client that came in and they had a janitorial and porta potty business. And they came in and they said, Valerie, we're looking to grow. We need to hire some employees. We also need 2 trucks that we need. And then we need some equipment, and we're having some gaps that we need to fill in for our accounts receivables because we have some government contracts. They're taking out up to 6 months for them to pay us back, right? So with that, they gave me all this information, and I was able to structure, I think it was about 5 or 6 different loans that we did for them. One of them being a line of credit so that they can go ahead and manage their receivables. 2 of them being business auto loans, which those are actually pretty easy to do. It's usually like a credit card application and the VIN number, of course. And in addition to that, we also did a working capital loan because they're looking to hire employees. And we also did an equipment loan. So it was about 5 loans that we did. And not only that, but the interest rate that they get on each collateral is different, right? So the business auto loans, because of the streamline and auto loans are actually, if it's a traditional auto loan, those interest rates are a lot lower than if it would be for equipment. So we were able to save them a lot of money because it was over $1 million that they were getting in a loan request. But we saved them a lot of money because we were able to structure it based on the collateral. And they had 5 different loans. But the nice thing about that is if you're to pay a loan down, right, your payment's always going to stay the same. So if we all consolidated that into one loan, everything with your payment would continue to be the same. It's kind of like your car payment, right? When you go ahead and pay that down, your payment doesn't change because it's, let's just say they give you 60 months and month number 60, you'll go ahead and pay that off. Yes, you'll shorten the amount of time, but your payment will not change. In this case, throughout their years of growth, they were able to pay off one of the trucks. So now they're eliminating $1,000 out of their liability. So that's also different ways of us to being able to extra capacity in the future to be able to do extra loans for your business. So very important that you have that communication with your banker and your accountant. And so they sometimes also work hand in hand together so that they can get you to the goals that you're looking, that you have for your business plan. Conditions, right? I talked about earlier. I opened an escrow company at the wrong time, right? And this all came down to me not looking at the market conditions. So very important that you understand the market conditions and including the economy and I'm going to go ahead and read this first. So how do various market conditions, including the economy, industry trends, and environmental factors affect the business prospects, right? So escrow company back in 2007 was not a great time, right, for me to open an escrow company at that time. And that's something of lack of planning, lack of business plan, lack of me not looking at the industry trends. Something very important that if you're looking at a new venture, right, take a look at the market conditions and see what it's doing. See what risk you're taking when you're going into that industry. So market conditions is something else that the underwriter is going to research and see how your industry is doing, especially if it's not known, not really known or on the news and things like that. So we have certain resources that'll let us know how that industry is doing, and this is actually something that we take in consideration as well. Number 5 is very important, character. So lenders may evaluate business-related attributes like an owner's experience, knowledge, financial competence, personal credit history, and future business plans. They may also look at other individuals who are tied to the success of the business. So it's normal for your banker to ask you, how did you get into the business? How long have you been doing it? Did you go to school for this business or did you acquire it? And also take a look at your personal credit report. Very important, right? The person that has that personal credit report is also going to be running the business. So it's something that we also consider and look at. So very important on character, taking a look at your history, your resume, how long you've been in business, see how you handle your credit on the personal side, because more than likely it's going to be very similar on how you handle the business credit as well. Number 6, I think I've already expressed how important communication is. A business owner's willingness to communicate with their small business specialist is essential to building a productive relationship. The more they share about their history, goals, and priorities, the better positioned they'll be to secure capital. So very important, not only your banker, right, but also have a good communication with your accountant. Not only good communication with your accountant, but also have a good accountant that's going to give you advice, right? I have some clients that they say, oh, I only see my accountant once a year. And I look at them and I'm like, why? You should be communicating with your accountant at least on a quarterly basis. Just that way, they know your plans, just like your banker, the goals that you have. There's been plenty of times that I've worked with accountants of, hey, this is what, we had this quarterly meeting and my client is looking to do X, Y, and Z. What is it that we need to do to prepare them for that next year? Now, you got to think about the traditional lenders. When we take a look at lending, we take a look at your previous data, not what you're going to be doing in the future. That does have compensating factors and mitigating factors for that of how the health of the business of the moment that you are applying, but it's heavily going based off what you have done in the past, right? So very important that you have that communication with your accountant, with your banker, and if necessary, have your banker and your accountant to work together to get you to where you need to be. Now we're going to go on to the next. So right here are the most common options for small businesses. again, I can't express how important it is to have a good relationship with your banker of what your goals and what you're going to be using the funds for, right? Now, there's business credit cards, right? Business credit cards, not only do they help you manage your receivables, your operating expenses, but then nowadays you actually get the cherry on top and the bonus of being able to get rewards also as well. I've had some clients that used to charge $50,000 on a monthly basis or even more. That's just a quick example on their debit cards. So not only are they exposing their debit card that's linked directly, right, to your checking account. So should somebody get a hold of that information, they could potentially drain some money out of your account. Is your money protected by the bank? Yes, it's protected up to a certain amount, but at the same time, you want to just safeguard your account as much as possible, right? This is your business and you need to protect it. So some of the benefits of using a business credit card: it's easy to track expenses at the end of the year, fast access to cash, easy to manage employee spending, cash and travel rewards program, which I mentioned is just the cherry on top, and then helps build a credit history. And very important to have business credit cards because you need to establish that business credit, which we'll talk a little bit about it later. Now, key considerations would be interest rate. But at the same time, the way that I tell my clients to use their credit cards is if you're already using your debit card and you just switch over to using your business credit card, not only are you helping your cash flow, right, and on your operating expenses, your cash flow, and then not only do you have 15 to 30 days to pay the bank back at no interest, right? So that's just another benefit as well. So you don't even have to really worry about the interest rate if you're leveraging your credit card, as I'm telling you right now. And then also another is not suited for long-term borrowing. So if you're looking for long-term borrowing, we're going to talk about it in just a moment, would be a business term loan, but definitely not looking to carry the balance, especially how interest rates are doing today with business credit cards. Business line of credit, right? We talked about how I did that for one of my, multiple clients, but we talked about an example earlier. Lines of credit are designed to help manage short-term cash needs of up to 1 year and provide access to cash to manage business cash flow. You don't know how many times I've met with somebody and they've used a line of credit to purchase in a fixed asset, okay? So meaning that it was used for equipment or maybe even for a down payment for a commercial property, and it's large amounts. Problems about line of credit is that they're not like business cards, right? Business card, you slide your card and you have a grace period where you're not paying for interest. Business lines of credit, the interest charge, it starts the moment that you touch it. So very, very important that you don't leverage a business line of credit for anything that's going to be a fixed asset. So this could be equipment. Let's just say that you're leveraging it for a new employee because you want to give them a sign-up bonus. Let's just say it wouldn't be used for anything that's going to be long-term. For that, you would use a business term loan, which we'll get into in just a moment. So benefits of a line of credit, right? It can help you fill those gaps. I talked about my father having an HVAC business. So during the summer, he's really, really busy, right? Because nobody can stand the heat. Now, during the winter, it gets a little slower. I mean, he's still busy, but people can actually manage the cold more than they can the heat. So he had a little bit of fluctuations in cash flow and seasonality. So business line, he did have a line of credit for that, which he did have a banker that guided him as much as he could. Lower short-term interest rates than cards. So an example could be that you have a vendor or supplier that maybe gives you a vendor's credit. So if you pay them up front, they give you a 10% discount, let's just say, right? So this would be something that you can pay back at a short term, right? So you're waiting for, you have a 30-day, let's just say, term with your client. And then now when you get that money back after you've done the job, you can go ahead and pay that line of credit. So it's something where you're using and paying it right back so that you're not killing yourself with the interest payments. working capital when you need it, right? So it could just be maybe you need to buy something where so just think about it as cash, right? So you're not getting any cash advance fees, which could be brutal on the credit cards. You know, it could be 25%, no, 20%, which is pretty high. So you're not getting those cash advance fees. So just think about it, working capital when you need cash. That would be something that you would use your line of credit for. Some key considerations, secured or unsecured, whether you're doing a secured one, meaning that you have to put in money for the line of credit to give you the actual line of credit, the annual and origination fee. So after a certain dollar amount, some banks will charge a higher annual fee or origination fee, so that's something to consider as well. They are variable interest rates, so it does go based on prime rate. And sometimes the banks may or may not have a promotion for that. No fixed payment schedule, and then reviewed annually for renewal, meaning that typically if you misuse the line of credit, there is a possibility that the bank can either shorten the availability of the credit or even take it away, especially with certain market conditions. Business term loans. Term loans are often used to finance the purchase of business assets or to finance business expansion over a period of time. So this would be something if you want to hire an employee, right? That could cost maybe $50,000, $200,000, depending on how many employees that you are trying to gain, right? You could also buy a piece of real estate. So there's different type of business term loans. There's SBA loans. There's also commercial real estate loans, but they're still considered term loans. And what that means, after a specific amount, whatever amount of time that you signed up for, that means that you'll have that payment until, let's just say, 60 months. So on month number 60, your loan will be paid off. It's just kind of like your car, right? If you ever finance a car, let's just say that you sign up for a 60-month term. If you follow that payment structure for each month for the next 60 months, you know that on month number 60, you will be paid off. Doesn't work like that for a line of credit because it's revolving. Key considerations is secured or unsecured, and then also the origination fee and other closing costs. Now we're going to talk about the different financing options. So the first one, and you may be familiar because they did help a lot during the pandemic with PPP loans and also the disaster loan during the pandemic, but small business administration loans. There's three types of, I'll get that into that in just a moment, but small business administration loans are through approved lenders, which include many major banks. You can also go to SBA.gov to find a lender. And something that I do want to share about SBA is that SBA has their own guidelines, but major banks or other lenders may put additional guidelines based on the risks that those banks are willing to take. So these loans typically will give you higher loan amounts because the way that they qualify these loans has a little bit more flexibility, require lower down payments. So I'll give you a quick example. If you are to do an SBA loan and you're trying to buy a commercial property, you could do that as low as 10% down. Whereas if you don't go SBA, then we would require at least 20%. So that kind of gives you an idea just right there, and keeping your cash and SBA option might be good for you. Feature easier qualification conditions and longer terms than other types of small business loans. So I did mention earlier that with equipment and you can get up to 10 years of a term, as opposed to maybe 5 or 7 if you go directly with the bank, not using the SBA program. Now there's 3 core SBA programs, and typically they're all used for different reasons. So the first one is the SBA 7A loan. General purpose is capped at $5 million, and that can provide financing for just about any business need. So it could be you want equipment financing, working capital, you have you're putting a little bit more than 10% down on your commercial real estate property. So those are just some examples of what you would be able to. So just think about SBA 7A. You can pretty much use it for just almost anything. SBA 504 is used only for commercial real estate and large equipment machinery. So I have had some manufacturing companies where their equipment costs $600,000 or more, right? So a 504 loan would probably be a better option. SBA Express is another type of 7A, but it's capped at $500,000 and are often used for equipment, working capital, and smaller owner-occupied real estate. Now, on here are some specialized type of loans. Now, commercial real estate, the way that we do commercial real estate is a little bit different, right? Because you got to think about there's appraisal involved, there's environmentals that are involved, there's additional reports that are required. This is a larger investment that you're doing for you and your business, right? So there's a little bit more involvement. Not too much on your part, but just more internally. So not too much that you have to worry about. But there's maybe just additional forms that you have to fill out, a couple, there might be closing costs, escrow involved, right? So there's a little bit more involvement. There are a variety of loan options available, including conventional SBA guaranteed loan programs, and conventional commercial real estate loans generally require a 20% down. But also, let's think about that, right? We say 20% down, but there's exception to that, because if you go through SBA, then you are able to get not only longer terms, so we get up to 25 years instead of 20 years, which the bank would offer if we went directly to them, or also the 10% down instead of the 20% down, which actually that's my third bullet point. Equipment loans also, right? Those are shorter terms, so it could go anywhere from 5 to 7 years. If we go to SBA, there's up to 10 years. And they could use to finance industrial, specialized equipment, or general purpose equipment, and then also commercial use purpose vehicles. Many banks manage business auto loans via their business auto loan program, which rates and terms similar to personal auto loans. So I did briefly touch about business auto loans earlier. Those are a little bit easier to get typically with your bank. And just because it's similar to when you go to the dealership, right? So very important that you communicate with your banker, letting them know whether this is an equipment loan of just like a traditional vehicle. And there's some vans, there's some commercial trucks and commercial vehicles that we could still use through auto loan programs. So very important that you share that VIN number to see if we can do that through them. To get you a better rate instead of going through the SBA program, which takes a little bit more documentation to do. Practice loans. So these are for our healthcare professionals, which includes our vets, right? Dental, our dentists and our doctors. So maximum loans vary by lender and purpose, such as practice acquisition, expanding, or remodeling. Some of these practice loan offers interest only and graduated payment structures with up to 100% financing on startup loans. And startup and practice acquisition loans may include working capital. So if you notice on here, we're talking about 100% financing, right? We go back to the 60s of credit. And when we talk about conditions, right, we talk about the history of that business, the history of that industry, right? So historically, we always need a doctor. Our pets are always getting sick, and somebody's always going to have a swollen tooth, right? At one point or another, or not just everybody, but you're going to need to go get a dental cleaning, right? So those three professions right there, historically, have always been pretty successful, no matter if we're in a recession, what our economy is doing. So they get a little bit more capacity when it comes to lending with the traditional lenders. Now, this is the part that I love the most, is alternative ways of financing. And the reason for this is because it takes me back to when I missed out on an opportunity because I thought that I was woman. I thought that there wasn't any resources available. I didn't think that there was funding. I thought I had I felt like I was over leveraged at the time. And so if I just knew about these resources here, these are other ways that you can get financing. I know somebody that went to 8 different lenders and got declined. And that was a combination of banks and community development financial institutions and brokers. But he was able to get the financing. He didn't give up. He didn't give up on the opportunity that was presented. He knew it was a good opportunity. So at that point, it didn't really matter what the interest rate was going to be. It didn't matter what the economy was doing. He knew that he had a vision, and he said, I'm going to keep going. And on the ninth lender, he was able to get the financing that he needed. Now I'm going to go through the first one, which is a community development financial institutions. That's called also CDFI. And these provide access to capital through loans, grants, and programs to historically underrepresented communities and organizations to foster entrepreneurs. They can provide tailored resources that traditional banks can be a great option for startups as well as an established business, right? So CDFIs, when we're not able to do something at Bank of America, we turn it over to a CDFI. And this could be maybe because the credit's not all there, cash flow might not be there. And the nice thing about CDFIs is they're there for the community development, right? And nice thing about it is that they're government funded. And all of the major banks will also support these CDFIs as well. So that's also the way that these major banks give back to the community. So there's different CDFIs available out there. There's micro lenders. There's also, there's some that specialize in real estate. I just found one that just did up to 30 years instead of 25 years. So that gives you a little bit higher capacity as well. So CDFIs would be an alternative way of getting lending as well. And they also may take projections as well. Something else to consider is also building a business plan, very important, because some of these CDFIs will also need it depending on the amount. There's also some CDFIs that may not only give you the money with just an application. So CDFIs would be another alternative way of funding. Also, minority business development agencies. These are part of the U.S. Department of Commerce and is solely dedicated to helping diverse own business to grow. The agency provides a variety of financing options for entrepreneurs, such as grants and access to venture capital, specifically geared towards diverse owned businesses. So this is something else, right? This is something else that's available out there to be able to get you to where you need. That includes the grants, right? Grants, we know that we don't have to pay those back. And it's investing into your business to get you to where you need to be. Local and regional funding, right? There's funding that is often available for regional-based organizations and specifically geared towards business owners. This includes opportunities provided by the local or state government and also local credit unions and banks. The Access to Capital Directory for Entrepreneurs created by Bank of America and Seneca Women is a great place to begin this research, and I will definitely share that with you at the end of this workshop. So Access to Capital Directory, just very briefly, we created that earlier this year. And what that is a directory where you go in there and you can find different resources, nonprofit. You'll also find the Valley Economic Alliance on there because you're also one of our trusted partners that we actually support. You'll find different CDFIs that are available based on your needs. So I'll go over that at the end. Also grants. Right? We have grants.gov, and this is a website that's very trusted. So not only can you also find grants at the Access to Capital Directory, but also you can find them on grants.gov, which is a reliable source. Now, grants, right? They could be industry driven. So it could be maybe they are looking for women-owned businesses, right? Maybe they're looking for a single woman that is pregnant and trying to thrive and they want to give them the opportunity. So there's certain things that they look for. It could also be that it's just a grant just for everybody. That can also be it. But you can find those also on grants.gov, which is another great resource. Now, when I close out, there's 3 QR codes on here. And it'll give you business resources, which, you'll also see the access to capital on there, better money habits, and Learn with Bank of America, which is webinars, which I'll talk about that shortly. But just recapping on everything that we spoke about today, right? Financing options for small businesses. The type of financing, right? We need to know what's the best, what is the best need for your short-term and long-term financing. So very important that you have that communication with your banker, what you're going to be using the funds for, so that we make sure to structure what type of loans that you are going to need. And then most common options, right, are the business credit cards, lines of credit, and term loans. Very important that you understand how each serves its purpose. SBA is another great product that'll give you a higher capacity for you to borrow. And not only that, but give you also better terms and also smaller down payments. We talked about the down payment, the 20% down payment versus the 10% down payment. We're talking about a commercial property, right? We're talking about here in California, right? It could be 3 million, 1 million, right? So just think about that, 10% to 20% right there. That makes a huge difference. That's money that you want to have in your pocket when you own a piece of real estate. So SBA could be a good option for you. Not only that, but you're getting longer terms. And then there's also specialty loans available. And not only that, but we talked about practice loans earlier, but I've also seen banks and lenders that also cater to specific industries. Manufacturers, there's some that just focus on manufacturers, that's their niche. So things like that to consider as well. We talked about the alternative options, which are the CDFIs, MDIs, and local fundings, as well as grants, and your capacity to repay. So on the first QR code, you're going to find the Access to Capital directory. There's also some programs that are available on there as well. And I want to touch on one if we have any women entrepreneurs on this call. We actually have Bank of America paying for Cornell University for you to take a 6-week course on how to successfully run your business. So definitely take a look on there. There's also crowd funds available. We just had a recent partnership with Kaiva that are supporting our women-owned businesses as well, and different cohorts and programs that you can sign up for to be able to get you to the next level. Or not only that, but maybe you need a good business network or mentorship, right? Because maybe you're new to the industry. So that would be the first QR code. The second one, you'll find presentations like the one today, whether you can look at, do it on your own, or two, maybe join one of my feature workshops. So that would be the second QR code. And then the third one is going to be the access to free learning at Learn with Bank of America. So on there, you can find webinars like today, and that are pre-recorded, number one, or two are going to happen soon. Now, I want to finally touch with working with an advisor. Very important that you have that guidance. You have the Valley Economic Alliance here, right? That can support you as well to get you ready, to get you to the next level. Not only that, but we also have your local bank, right? We can also help you here at Bank of America, and your accountant as well. Very important that you have, one, a good relationship with them, and two, one that's also going to help you and give you that advice, right? One that's going to tell you, you know what, based on what you're showing me and the way that things are going, you have this money in the bank. Why not purchase a commercial property and give you all the benefits of owning one, right? You can get depreciation right off the interest. So there's a lot of benefits, and it's a long-term finance for your business. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that. And I'm going to go ahead and share my contact information in case anybody has any additional questions or anything specific that's tailored to you that maybe you don't want to talk about in this call, in the Q&A session. But I want to go ahead and thank you all for being here, and I want to go ahead and open it up for questions.
All right, thank you so much, Valerie. I asked almost everybody in our group if they've had questions. Everyone said it was super comprehensive and they've learned quite a bit from this. So thanks again for covering a lot of the topics. I wanted to ask you about the lending landscape right now. Like, what's the lending demand from your perspective? Is loan volume slowing down or picking up? Are businesses actively borrowing right now despite the higher interest rates and the tighter credit requirements?
So they are still borrowing. They are still borrowing, but we still have those clients that are a little skeptical, right? So we have those clients that come in and they look at the interest rate, right? Which is really important to understand what the market is doing today. Now, we're not on those 2%, 3% days anymore. So it's very important that you understand that those days are not coming back for a while, if they ever are. But yes, we are still getting applications. We're still getting applications for commercial real estate. And the nice thing about this is because now what we're trying to do is just creating that awareness of, we can't do it at Bank of America. It doesn't mean that it can't be done at a CDFI or somewhere else, right? So yes, we are still getting applications. It's definitely not the way that it used to be, right? When the interest rates were just low, but the need is definitely there. And I got to tell you something right now. I mean, your business, if you have a good plan and you know what you're going to be using those funds for, and you know what those funds are going to be doing for you, it's a perfect time to borrow. It's never a wrong time to borrow. Quick example is, I had a client that came in and he said, if I buy construction company, he said, Valerie, I just noticed if I buy a water truck, I'm going to add $150,000 to my bottom line. At that point, it really doesn't matter, right, what the interest rate is going to be. So just a quick example.
So it could, kind of a piggyback off that question. If borrowers are being more scrutinized in this kind of current economic climate, and it might be in some ways more strict than it was even earlier in the year, and the interest rates are higher, how do you think borrowers can better prepare to qualify for financing, assuming, let's say they have cash flow, but maybe they don't have collateral, or maybe their credit scores are still recovering from, the post-pandemic?
No, yes, of course. Well, that's when our CDFIs would come in, and that's when the access to capital directory would come in. And of course, the banks, they're always going to be risk-based, right? But that doesn't mean that the financing is not out there. So that's when you would leverage all the resources that are available outside of Bank of America. But not only that, but we can still help you here with your banking. We can still help you here with the credit card. It's just, we might just need you to come back in a couple of years and maybe work with the Valley Economic Alliance to work with you and your accountant to be able to get you ready to come back, to get those better interest rates, to get those better promos, to get the best terms available out on the market.
All right. Super. Are there any questions from the audience? I asked in the chat, but I didn't see. Anyone want to unmute themselves, ask any questions? I see one from Carrie. I'll send you a direct message and we can talk about that one offline. So let me ask you one more question, Valerie. What are some of the common red flags that you see when people, are submitting loan documents? Any kind of tips for minimizing some of those mistakes, especially like if they're in a borrowing year and maybe they show less profit, they're doing taxes right now. There was an extension in California, and maybe they're showing, the balance of profit versus taxes is a little off. They're showing a little less than they could. Any other kind of tips or suggestions, things that you catch, red flags they should minimize?
Accountants. I can't express that more, but yes, and here it is. When we receive some of these tax returns, I'm not an accountant, and in our line of business, we learn how to read tax returns. We learn how to find those mistakes, right? And we see so many. You could have, let's just say, $2 million in your account, and we know you're profitable. But then maybe we saw that you bought equipment and they're cutting you short by not depreciating that, maybe, right? Or you have a building, they're not depreciating that, which that's income back to you. That's a tax credit that you're getting, right? Also, balance sheets being empty, not filling it out at all. Other things, the balance sheet not balancing. So maybe they are filling it out, but it's not balancing. So those are red flags when submitting a loan application. And then over asking. So when you come to your banker, we take a look at everything, we evaluate it, we do a cash flow analysis, meaning, okay, based on your current situation, we feel that you have about 80% chance of getting approved for $200,000. Client might say, I want 500, right? we submit that, it's already a red flag because you're over asking and it's already not cash flowing. So those are just a few red flags that we see here.
All right. Well,
I do have a comment, if you don't mind, Brett.
sure.
Hi, my name is Mel. I spoke to Valerie last night. I just want to tell you, Valerie, what an awesome presentation you just gave. I'm looking forward to talking to you more, hoping that you could actually help me with my second business.
No, yes, of course. I didn't want to single you out earlier, but I was excited to see you here. So yes, thank you so much for joining, and yes, looking forward and working together on what you're trying to do. I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brett.
All right, you're very welcome. Thanks for the feedback. And everyone, just so you know, the replay and any handouts will be available on the Alliance's website. And Erica, maybe you could put that link in the chat just so folks can get that. And visit thevalley.net/assistance to learn more about the different resources and future events that are geared for small businesses. Keep in mind that in about a week in the San Fernando Valley, you're invited to our offices to attend the Valley Growth Lab on September 14th from 4 to 6 p.m. That's an in-person meetup where you'll connect with other local businesses and professionals looking to network. So feel free to come, and you can register at thevalley.net/events for that. So I'd like to thank again Valerie Rivas from Bank of America. I really appreciate the great presentation. I think we all learned quite a bit. Any follow-up questions, feel free to email Valerie or us, and we'll make sure that we all get more questions answered. And thanks again for our board member, Kathy McIntyre, and all of our sponsors, and all of you for joining us today. Have a great rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.